If not, hit the like and subscribe.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today. We got a great show for you. And Anthony Ruggiano is going to be on tonight. And Anthony's father was Fat Andy. And Fat Andy was a big shot in the Gambino crime family. I mean, Fat Andy Ruggiano started with Albert Anastasia, the Mad Hatter, in the 50s. I mean, his father was a serious guy and a real gangster, well-known, well-respected man. And Anthony's going to tell us about his association with the Gambino crime family and John Gotti and some of these other stories. And, you know, probably get into a little going to prison and leaving the family. You know, these are topics we want to hit all the time and you know, get the reaction from people to see what it's like, you know, to be in this life. Also, if you ever have want to get in touch with us, you could go up to bobbyluisi.com, go to the contact page, leave your information there, and we will get back to you. And don't forget that we have those knives up on eBay, Bobby Luisi, signed knives. And, you know, we have our stuff that we're selling. You could go up to bobbyluisi.com again and go to the store page and get our T-shirts, our masks, our hoodies, our hats. Whatever you like. I'm going to put up more products soon because the summer's here. So listen, we'll be right back with Anthony, and stay tuned. And thank you for tuning in again. You know, I'm so happy you're on the show with me right now, Anthony. You know, I mean, I haven't seen you, what, for a few months? What was that, a few months ago?
Yeah, about 2 months ago, yeah.
We were drinking together, had a little fun.
Yeah, we had a good time that night. Yeah, that was a good night. That was a good day and night.
Yeah, beautiful women around.
I know.
Nice.
Yeah,
that was nice.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
You know, so I did a little introduction on you, and I know a lot of people know who you are, Anthony. But I'd like you to tell a little more about yourself, about your father, you know, before we get into more of the conversation together.
Well, you know, as far as this life is concerned, I was actually born into it. I was born in 1953, which was the same year my father had gotten straightened out. My father was only 26 at the time when he got straightened out in 1956. And the books were closed. He was a special case because of the work he did for, you know, for Albert. Anastasia was the boss at the time. So they used to call him the Kid. That was his nickname, the Kid. My father, he always used to tease me and said, Albert used to say, send the Kid. And he would go downtown. They would give him a pair of gloves and a gun, never no money. He said, just a pair of gloves and a gun. And then say, go over here, you know. So I was actually born into it, you know. And so I grew up around it. I grew up around wise guys. You know, we used to tell a joke years ago that actually wise guys actually used to change my diaper. You know, and that's the truth. They used to babysit me, like my father's partner, Tony Lee, who was a wise guy. He used to babysit me. Yeah. So I grew up around wise guys. I was very comfortable around them, and my father always commanded a lot of respect. And as I grew older, you know, he had a really big crew. He was very well known, and you know, but he as far as he was a good father. I mean, he was a great father. You know, a good provider. But you know, in the street, he was a dangerous person.
No, I know. I heard a lot about your father. Yeah. And praise God, you know, you grew up with him and he was a good dad to you, you know. Yeah. A lot of guys in that life, you know, it's supposed to be about the family, but, you know, a lot of times, you know, we put this family aside and worry about our family on the street.
Of course, yeah. I mean, the family in the street came, you know, like he was there for them. I mean, he believed in that, you know, with all his heart and soul. I mean, you know, he believed in that life, but, you know, he loved sports, he loved music, he loved food. So he, you know, he passed that all on to us, you know, like he schooled me in the street, but he also taught me how to box. He took me to the Yankee games all the time. He loved to go to baseball games. He loved the fights. He took me to see all big fights at Madison Square Garden. He loved to go to boxing matches. And he loved to drink. You know, he loved to party. I mean, he was a party animal. He was out every night.
Yeah.
He was just, he loved being Fat Andy. I can tell you that. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the man he was and his reputation. Yeah. You know, I mean, actually coming up with Albert Anastasia, that's an amazing story in itself.
Crazy. Yeah. You know, and as a matter of fact, I told the story before. I think I told you before. Actually, the day Albert got clipped, my father was driving to Manhattan with Tony Lee, and it came on the radio. He had gotten shot, and my father and Tony pulled the car over and went to a payphone and called Neil up, Neil Della Croce.
Yeah.
And Neil told them, don't come to the city. Albert just got clipped in the barber shop, and they met somewhere else. So he was actually on his way to downtown to meet up with them, because he used to go. My father always went to the Ravenite religiously twice a week, on Wednesday nights and Saturday afternoons, my whole life. Those 2 nights, he was there religiously on those 2 days. So he was headed that way, you know, and you got to understand at that time, they were only kids. You know, my father was only 29. Tony Lee was only 27. They were kids, you know, and you know, their life was in jeopardy when Albert got clipped. You know, they were his main crew. They were his main regime. Them guys, Tommy Raven and all those guys did all the work for Albert. So like they had an issue. They had a problem with Carl. You know, and they, you know, thank God it all got straightened out, and nobody, the only one that disappeared was Tommy. Unfortunately, they clipped Tommy, but other than that, they all, you know, they all survived. And, you know, and not only did they survive, Carl, as smart as he was, made them his crew, and they did all, then they started doing the work for Carl. You know, this is what my father told me.
That was the smart thing to do. I mean, you know, why would you want to waste a crew like that? Why would Carlo want to go to war with 90 guys?
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, your father had a lot of followers.
Right. You know? And, you know, my father told me the story about when they got called in, you know, they all met, they went to Carl's house one at a time in his basement, and it was just him and them. And he told my father, listen, I know you were a soldier and you took orders, because what happened was he had bad problems with Albert Anastasia, and Albert had his cousin clipped. Albert had Carl's cousin clipped. And Carl knew one of those guys in that crew did the work, you know what I mean? He knew the work, and so that was an issue. But Carl told them, "I know you were only taking orders. You were soldiers, and you know, and you know, he took them all back, and you know, went on from there. So you know, and you know, that was it. So, and then when I was 16, you know, I started hanging out with my father, you know, and then I started, you know, then he started schooling me, taking me around with him, introducing me to guys, bringing me to social clubs, telling me who's who, what's what, who did this, who did that, and, you know, and how I should respect them, and, you know, what I should do. And I started working for him in the street. And, you know, he always made me work. I always had a job, like a legal job, but I always had a job. Yeah. I always worked in a number office or a blackjack game or a crap game. I always had a job, you know, and I took a lot of pinches with those bullshit jobs, but I always had a job.
Yeah. Well, see, I had you know, I grew up in a Sicilian household, and I had to go to work every day after school. That's when I started 11 years old, going with the gangsters and, you know, with the pinball machines and all of that. And, I always had a job since I was a little kid, Anthony. Yeah. You know, they instill that in you. I mean, that's that, you know, Sicilian way, Italian way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. My mother's Sicilian. Yeah, for sure. You know, the day that I asked him to go to work for him is, you know, he sat me down and he told me, you want to work for me? You know, going to jail was all part of the job. And the next day he took me to Merrick Road in Long Island to this guy, Philly the Pimp, his name was. It was his nickname. He had a blackjack game, and he put me to work in the guy's blackjack game. I was only 16.
Wow.
Yeah. And then from there, I started working in crap games. You know, it was before Atlantic City. There was no casinos. You know, we had all the crap games. Back then, it was split up between all the families. So there was we had a slots. Like, so our slot was 12 to 4. So we had a crap game in the Bronx from 12 in the afternoon to 4 in the afternoon. Then we closed, and then the West Side had a slot from 7 to 11, and they had a crap game in Manhattan and all the families, the Lucchese's had the Shylockin, and the Bananas had the Numbers, and all the crap games were all integrated with the 5 families, and I worked in them. You know, and I was only a kid. I was getting paid $100 a day. you know, in 1972, that was a lot of money, $100 a day. So, you know, I was caught up in that. I was caught up in that, and especially I was his, you know, Fat Andy's son, and it was just, you know, I just got caught up in it, you know, and I started getting pinched. And you know, went on from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's something with these stories, you know. Not to keep going back to your father.
That's all right.
You know, but now how high did he rise up in the family after Carlo took him back in?
Oh, well, when Paul was the boss, you know, he was considered a captain when Paul was the boss. When Castellano became the boss, and then my father got pinched right before my father got pinched in '84. So right after that, not long after that, Paul got clipped.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, my father never got out. When John was the boss, my father was incarcerated the whole time, and then when my father got out, Pete was the boss. Pete Gotti was the official boss. When my father got out of prison, he passed away 18 months after he got released. So he was really inactive when he got out of prison. He had a list of 200 people that he couldn't talk to, and some of them were dead. He used to tell me, I got people on there that are dead. In case I meet them in the afterlife, I can't talk to them. Yeah.
Now, your story, I know they proposed you a few times.
Right.
Can you tell us that story, what happened?
Sure. Well, the first time, I always say it might have been divine intervention because it happened 3 times. So the first time it happened was in 90. They passed my name around, and I got pinched on a, they raided, I was working we had a big number office. My father had a policy ring, and I was working in there, and we got pinched in the street. And then 4 months later, I got re-indicted for state RICO. So I took a plea. I got 1 1/3 to 4. So I went away. So I didn't get straightened out at that point. While I was away in 91, John Gotti had gotten arrested with Sammy and Frankie Loke. So when I was away, then Sammy flipped when I was away. So when I got out, John was gone. He was off the street, and Nicky and Pete and John Jr., they were on the committee. They were on the 3-panel committee running the family. So Tony Lee was still alive. He had gotten stomach cancer, so he wanted me to get straightened out again. So they proposed me again, and I got pinched again. And I got pinched again for a bookmaking case. And while I was away, I took a plea. I took 2 to 4. And what happened was the day before I turned myself in on that case, they had a party for me, a going away party. And at the party, Skinny Dom, who was a skipper, and Pete were there. They took me outside and they said, listen, we're going to send a message to your father, because my father really wanted me to get straightened out before I went away. Right. But they said, we're going to send a message to your father that as soon as you get out, because I thought I was only going to do 2 years. They said, as soon as you get out, we're going to, you know, straighten you out. We're going to send a message to your father that it's a done deal. As soon as you get out, get out. But what happened was when I went away, while I was away doing the 2 to 4, I got indicted in Miami by the feds with Nicky Carrazza. So I winded up getting 10 years because I took a plea with the feds. Right. So I wind up from doing 2 years, I wind up doing 8. So I get out in 04, and my father had passed away when I was away. So Nicky had me transferred from Mikey Gal, who was Tony Lee's brother, to him. When I got out, they sent my name around again. They sent for me, and they told me that everything's, it's approved, it's a done deal. We're going to give you, you know, your permission if you need to go on a sit down, because they had this guy, Nunzi. He was servicing me when I first got out. He was a wise guy with Nicky. He was like sort of service. You know, if I needed anything, I was going to him. He was like my go-between, because we were all on supervised release, me, Nicky, and Lenny, and everybody. So what happened was they sent for me, him and brother and Lenny and a couple of guys. They sent Jimmy Boy, they're all wise guys, skippers, and they told me, listen, it's a done deal. If you need to go sit down with anybody, you got permission to go. Everybody knows that you're allowed to sit down with them. It's just a matter of when we're going to have the ceremony. It's going to be anytime soon. And Jimmy Boy and brother are going to take you to the ceremony whenever it is. Probably, matter of fact, they had told me it's probably going to be right before Christmas. I said, all right. A week later, I got pinched by the feds in front of my son's house. A week later, I got pinched for the murder and all that. And then, you know, and then whatever, then I decided to go another route. And so I never actually had the ceremony. Like I never had the paper in my hand, but you know, it was a done deal, just no ceremony.
But listen, being a proposed man in the Gambino family, the Genovese, and all these families, it's still like you're a made guy.
Oh yeah.
You just got to go through the ceremony.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you still got the respect, Anthony. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, Nikki knew what I was capable of. You know, listen, you know, for me, this is I can only speak for myself. So I had this father who was larger than life in the mob, Fat Andy, right? So, you know, I wanted to be my own man. So that's why, you know, I always was out front with my friends. You know, I always was the first one in the door. You know, I took my pinches. I did 14 years in prison, just like you. Yeah. You know, so I always took my lumps. I never said, you know, and I could have went, listen, you go out and, you know, just took the money. I never did that because I want, and, you know, I think that's the reason why I got along so good with John Gotti also. And because I think they respected me in that way, because John knew that I did what I needed to do and I went to jail, and you know, I think he liked that, you know, so that's why he always was good. He always treated me well also. And my father was always happy with me. I mean, my father used to kiss me on the lips. Yeah. You know, so, you know.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I got to ask you a question. What did your father think when they whacked Big Paulie? John and Sammy. I mean,
nobody liked Paul Castellano. I met Paul Castellano twice in my life. Personally met him twice. Once was that they clipped one of my brother's friends had gotten clipped in front of my house, across the street from my house. The Colombo